Hi guys, guess who I've got back? Blair Styra. Hi Blair.
Hello, everybody. It's awesome to see you, Jill.
Yes,
And of course, I love doing these interviews because it's just such a great way of linking in with people, but also, passing on information and, having a bit of, I think in the 1930s, they used to have these fireside chats that the president would give during the Great Depression. And I think we're in a bit of a Great Depression in a sort of energy-wise way. So these little fireside chats that Spirit's given us, and of course myself, is yeah, it's appropriate, and I think it's a lot of fun too. So thank you for allowing me to speak. So
oh no, it's wonderful. And I think it's time for everybody to be uplifted
oh,
because
completely,
it's
yeah.
the year of the horse. You're going to
Mm.
gallop ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, it's a time like that. And I was just thinking about something Tabash said recently, which was he was talking about the years, but he says in spirit we do not see years as years, like beginnings and ends. We see them as vibrations. So you are moved into the 2026 vibration, the 2026 frequency. And so when we do that, then automatically we have to reactivate our human nature into alignment with that frequency. And so for people who are, really au fait with their self-development, that actually often happens quite naturally. And so they just feel a shift of consciousness or a change and then naturally get directed towards, a new way of thinking, feeling, being, whatever. For those who aren't as activated, then that's where they have to, look for where the plug is. And so they have to go through certain experiences or thoughts or revelations or whatever to be able to know how to plug into that vibration. So makes sense, doesn't it? The more you're evolved in mind, body, and spirit, then you get this natural uh, adaptation into the new frequency,
Mm.
and it just sort of comes with the territory, really. So,
Do you think that's when you get more downloads?
oh, totally, yeah. Oh, look, the amount of downloading I am getting at this time, it is it's quite extraordinary. I mean, I've always had them, but um, to this extent that's occurring, I'm walking, you may feel the same, walking in a constant altered state.
Mm.
And I know even people who are not light workers or channels and all that sort of stuff, but who are, highly developed human beings, then they're becoming more of the soul. And as we become more of the soul, it's because we've been able to master this human story. And that's, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Blair, that's what I love because, with all the downloads, one of the
Mm.
downloads they gave me, it said a guide for the awakening human, a map for the expansion of the soul. Just
Yes.
what you've
Yep.
said.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And we have to be presented with different maps as we evolve, because if we don't, we just get lost because we're following the old maps. And the topography changes vibrationally. So that which was there previously, suddenly it's not because things have expanded and evolved. And I
Yes.
think that's happening physiologically, emotionally, mentally, and of course, spiritually. So we're going through this rather extraordinary active participation in ourselves on all levels. And so every cell of our body has more awareness. And I was reading something the other day, and I think it was some information from some galactic energies. I can't remember exactly. But they were talking about a lot of human nature feels like they're in a prison. And they're in that prison because they don't remember.
Mm.
So they're locked into the idea of human nature. And therefore, they've turned the Earth experience into a bit of a dangerous place. And so when we have awareness, then we're no longer bound by our human nature because the light vibration is what loosens those binds. And then we have freedom. I believe my observations and my own experiences over these last 6 years, people have been turning so many lights on, and then suddenly they're no longer bound. So they're no longer prisoners to the human concepts. And that's where they get back into what feels really natural, which of course is living life with all the lights on. And of course, when you turn all the lights on, if you've lived in a bit of a dark place for a while, you have to get used to, seeing things in a different light. So you have to adjust into, it's like our eyes adjust when we go into a dark space and that sort of thing. So, it's exactly the same thing. So this adjustment that we've been going through has amounted to extraordinary awareness. And so it's activating every single cell of our physical. So that's trillions of activations that are happening even as we speak right now. And so the more we are consistent in living through the soul, then our physical gets used to living as light. And so, of course, that expands us. It allows us to be different observers, but it also allows us to be more conscious of what we're doing with this emotional experience we're having on this earth. Because, we're so activated by emotions and we get caught up into our emotions. And, emotions are good, but emotions can be counterproductive as well.
Yeah,
So when
definitely.
you're of the soul, that's when you're able to organize your human emotions in a highly productive way so that they don't get in your way or the better of you. And so the light that we're experiencing at this point, even for people who have no sense of their spirituality at all, they're aware that something's different and they can't explain it because, and this is something that spirit's really hitting home a lot at the moment. We've evolved to a place where the only way to access this greater awareness is the recognition of yourself as a soul.
I
So
like
when you consciously bring light through you, that's when you advance. If you stay locked into the human experience and the human ideas, etc., then you'll struggle. And it's like still trying to stay in the same clothes, even though you've grown into an adult. And so it just doesn't fit anymore. So our life, what was, doesn't fit what we were. And so now our life is being fitted out, if you like, with this new frequencies, new vibrations, new energies. And and it's, what's that word? Bespoke tailoring, where you go and you go and get a design and it's made specifically for you, as opposed to off the rack life. And so where people just do that. Oh, it's cheap, just get it off the rack, you see.
I'll make it fit.
Yeah, I'll make well exactly, yeah. And but I don't think that attitude works anymore because we're too evolved. So we're in a position where we are designing our thoughts, our words, our deeds, and we're having to fit ourselves out for the lives that feel natural to us as individuals. And if you're being absolutely true to yourself in that sense, then you wear that vibration. As Tabash says, it's actually the way you wear yourself that determines what your experiences are going to be. And so, of course, if we're all wearing ourselves in the best version of ourselves we can, then can you imagine the collective energy that we create, because of that? So it's a bit like everyone's in the room at a cocktail party and everyone's in designer outfits, but they're also individuals. So no one's wearing the same thing at all. There's no mistake. No one's going to walk in and go, oh, hang on a minute, you're wearing what I'm wearing. You just can't. And I think it's that individuality that is being presented to people. Who are you as an individual? What is your place in consciousness? And even though we're all God, we still have a role to play. And the role doesn't have to be big major teachings and healings and stuff like that. The role could be, the job you have as a lawyer or as a doctor or as a housewife or as a childcare worker or whatever the cases are. But are you being the best version of that? Are you experiencing that
Well, you're
through,
enjoying it.
yeah, yeah, well, exactly. Well, I think a lot of people, they're involved in work because it's just a means to an end,
Mm.
so for people who really enjoy their work, then they understand the vocation of themselves, and so they activate the ability to really be in harmony with what they're doing, even in the most simplest job possible, and I remember when I was a child, and my Ukrainian grandmother was asked me to sweep the leaves outside, and but it was windy. So of course, every time I swept, you know, they just sort of.
That'll keep him busy.
Well, I think that's why she did it, and it was just blowing all over the place. And I said, well, I said to her, Baba, it's the wind, the leaves. She says, it's not what happens to the leaves, it's how you sweep. You know. And I just remember thinking, even then, I must have been only about seven, and thinking, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. It wasn't actually the job itself. It was the attentionness or the attentiveness you put to it, the way you're going about it, you see. She didn't care whether I swept the leaves out and all that. So it was character building stuff. It was a bloody big tree too. So there were a lot of leaves.
Build your muscles for the future.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So,
You know what I love? I love that so many of us are so different. We get the same message, but in a totally different way. And what I what always fascinates me is like
mm,
it's almost like you get a breadcrumb, like 2 years ago, a breadcrumb, and you get told something, but you sort of understand it, you think you understand it,
mm,
and then suddenly you get this other information, and then the whole picture
mm,
becomes fuller.
yeah, yeah.
So, like when they said to me, um, "You are a mathematical equation." And nobody else has your equation. No one.
Mm, mm,
That's your recipe, that's your essence.
mm,
Just like you were talking about that just now. And then they said about a week ago, they said all your organs vibrate at different frequency. All those frequencies are
mm,
individual
mm.
equations,
Yes,
but
yeah,
they work together in the whole.
yes, yeah, yep,
And then you're a symphony, you're an
yes.
orchestra
Orchestra, yeah,
of sound, right?
yeah.
And frequency and light. And then I started thinking, but it's like all of us that are different, that are vibrating differently, but working together,
Mm,
creating that gorgeous music.
mm. When you're saying that, I've just got the thought of snowflakes. And when you put the snowflake under the microscope, it's the most extraordinary design. And apparently no snowflake is exactly the same. And yet all this beauty in its individuality is creating this mass beauty in the snow as it settles.
Yes. And then they said, and this is even makes more sense to what you've been saying. Then they showed me the different hertz, Hertz, for the different hertz.
Yes, yep,
So
yep.
they said if those organs
Mm,
are being held by emotional hurts, they're going to
mm,
be out of alignment.
yes,
So
yep.
that
Mm,
vibration, the tune that they're supposed to be playing
mm.
at, is now not
Yes,
aligned
yep,
beautifully.
yes, yep,
So now the notes are going to be jarred.
yep, yep.
So then that's how you address
Yes, yeah. Well, it's
those
a
emotions.
new composition. You don't listen to the same song all the time.
Yeah. And
And
now
and
you said that we come in that Tabash says with this like 21
mm,
whatever.
yep, yeah. Well, 2026 hertz.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yes,
see?
yep, yep.
So it's like, okay, well, we can't really get there
Mm,
unless we like fine tune ourselves to be able
correct.
to
Yep, yep,
accept that
yeah,
that
yeah,
gorgeous new tune. Is
yeah,
that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to be, in total alignment, but you have to have an awareness of yourself as a soul. And when you have that awareness, then, for what a better cliche, well, here's a key, and that gives you access to this vibration and energy. but the energy is so diverse and so enormous
Mm.
that, the key's just giving you access. You still have to decide what you're doing with the vibration.
You still got to play the piano.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, you've got all the keys and all the notes. That's a good analogy. And but then you have to decide, okay, well, I've got to play around and tinkle away here. So I'm not going to spend the rest of my life playing chopsticks, you know. So which I think a lot of people do. But that's what awareness does. It teaches us that, well, interesting as I'm going to say, we're the instrument.
Mm.
But then when we fine tune our instrument, physically, emotionally, mentally, etc., then it promotes light and life through us. And then that directs us to other places, other experiences, other people, other reading materials, or whatever that support that energy, but also activate the energy more so we have more of an advancement.
Mm.
And that's why so many people are being drawn to go to certain places in the world or experience different cultures or visiting ancient types of ruins. I also look at it like you're returning to a version of yourself that you're remembering. So I so believe that wherever we find ourselves in the world, whether it's Wanaka, Wellington, wherever, you know, we positioned ourselves there because there's a frequency there. But then, as you are aware, as I'm aware, we can move. So we get to a point where suddenly the frequency is no longer
Suiting us.
suitable.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So if
Back to
you
your
have,
clothes, you
yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you have a choice, then that's where you're able to look more globally. Obviously, in some people's cases, they don't have the choice. So therefore, what they do is, if you can't change your environment, you change the way you are in the environment.
Mm.
So you're reorganizing the vibration to, you know, produce good results for you as the energy changes.
I'll give you a very small example of that. Very small. As a very young housewife with two little boys
Mm.
and very little money, I would suddenly decide to change the whole way, the layout of the lounge.
Yep.
Just this chair's going to go there and this sofa's now going to be pushed. And I couldn't wait for my hubby to come back and lift anything. I had to
You do it. Yeah.
do it then and there, right? And he'd come back and he'd go, "Oh my word, like what's going on here?" And I say, "Well, I can either play with the furniture or play with the checkbook.
Yep.
Play away, redesign the lounge as many times as you like."
You remind me of my late wife, Kay, who was a really good carpenter. And when we first bought this property, it was in really bad repair, built in 1860 and hadn't done much. So we just pretty much started straight away. And Kay was such a good DIY person, you see. And I remember, when I was not channeling then, I was working in town, and I would come home and suddenly a wall had appeared where there wasn't one before, or one had disappeared where there was one before, you know. And so it was just this instant, oh, I'm not going to hang around and wait till we can afford to get someone to go and do it. I'll just do it myself, you know. And which,
Changing her
yeah,
environment.
yeah, changing the environment basically. And I, saying that again makes me think, we have inner environments, we have external environments. And so our external environments come from our internal environments. So the way we relate to our own frequency determines exactly what our experiences are going to be, whether it's mind, body, or spirit.
And
And
please expand on that, Blair, because a lot of
yeah,
people
yes,
really,
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
don't get that, please.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so think of what I said earlier before. We are souls, so we are higher in our nature first before we are human in our nature. So we are souls in our physical bodies, and the soul is where the power is. And so there's a phrase, we are here today for now. And so when you understand that the real you is what's allowing all of this to function, then you realize that you're a vibration that's consistently emitting vibrations through your thought processes, through your actions, through your attitudes. And of course, in doing so, you create, let's call it a membrane of frequency around you. And in that membrane of frequency are all your stories, your thoughts, your words, your deeds. and they're just moving around you. So the more you focus on what's going on in your life, then the more you're sending out those types of signals. So as I said before, metaphorically, it's the way you wear yourself. And so therefore, when you get involved in self-development, it's developing the ability to stand still and listen to what's going in, and listen to your stillness, listen to what makes sense to you, what's natural to you, etc. And without too much interference, because I think as human beings, we have the propensity to overthink or overfocus or overdo. So we interfere too much.
Won't you do me
Yep, yep, yep. Oh, you're
a
getting off
favor?
it.
Keep on chatting.
Yeah.
Tell them about it. I need some water.
You off you go. Yeah, you're just a bit overwhelmed by by her brilliance. Yes. So, when you get involved in your inner frequencies, then, you're turning these lights on, you're activating your cellular energies into being receptive to more of life's power. And of course, as you become more au fait with that, then you start sending that vibration out. And so this becomes light energies, and people even sense this in people sometimes. Oh, I really feel your vibe, that type of thing. And not just in productive ways, but in counterproductive ways. You okay now? So
This is like a,
you you got choked up there. So
haven't coughed all day. They just
yeah, yeah.
waited until
Of course, absolutely. Yeah.
cheers until you were.
Yeah. So this inner frequency, it's the real us. It is us as the soul. And so as the soul, our aim is to direct our human nature through our intentions by telling our human nature. But of course, people look at our human nature and think, well, there I am. But that's just the vehicle that allows the expression. What you really are is unlimited. You can't really say who you are. It's impossible.
Boundless.
It's just I am. And each day that we wake up, you have a choice to decide, well, how am I going to be today? What version of myself do I choose to be? And because we have structures and systems and patterns in our lifetimes, I don't think that's a hard thing to do, because you can simply spend a moment or two considering, well, here's the structure of the day. These are the emotions I'm going to be using. This is the intellect I'll be utilizing, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, I choose to use my power to be the best version of all of those things. And so we become very direct in how we're informing who we are without all the hocus pocus mumbo jumbo stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
you know, yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
basic.
yeah. It's basic. It's nothing woohoo at all. It,
Yeah.
it it is basic common sense. I gotta say this. Being God is basic common sense. Because it's
You're
a
going to
for
trigger some people
I
with
know
that
it's a
comment.
formula.
Always.
It's a formula. And the way I look at it, it's like G plus O plus D equals life. So it's just a word that defines life. And so it's a living frequency, and we are all that living frequency.
They just said to me, God, good ordinary day.
There you go. Well, this is it. Each day you wake up, you have life. Each day you decide, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to think? What am I going to feel? If I'm doing it from my God place, well, then I'm going to have a good day. And it's again, the way we wear ourselves. If you sound like a slogan now, but if you wear yourself in a good way, you're going to have a good day. Okay. And so there's a t-shirt. I'm sure someone's done it. But
I see a t-shirt coming on.
oh yeah, yeah. So but we're progressing. And in our progression, we are moving away from the human nature way of experiencing things, and instead quite naturally moving into the higher way. And again, that doesn't mean everyone has to go and do meditations and all that sort of stuff. It's just the lights are being turned on, and you can no longer function without, some sense of belief in more than your human nature. And so, and it's going to unfold, whether people believe it or not, or like it or not, it's just going to happen. And so if you can investigate your own beliefs and even question your own belief system, that is good, because it helps you to evolve. Because how can you advance if you don't question things? Even if you've been on a strong spiritual road for a long time, it's still good to question. Do I still believe in this?
Mm.
Do I still believe in that or that way of looking at it, et cetera, et cetera? And that is allowing you to question yourself, really, because as you're evolving, it's like, oh, well, let's bring in a new teacher or a new way of thinking or a new way of feeling. Let's get stimulated in different ways. You don't need to go by an old creed and making your life some sort of consistent mantra based on limited thoughts and feelings and belief
Yeah.
systems.
I just say, look, if somebody asks me something, I'll say, well, this is what I know with the
Mm.
information
Yep.
and understanding that I've got today.
Yes. Yeah.
But tomorrow there might be new stuff. I might
Oh, look, totally.
I might change completely
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm not set in stone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, with you saying that, I can feel Tabash around, so maybe I'll just pop him through and
Come on,
yeah, let's
let's
just
bring Mr. T through,
yeah,
see
yeah,
what he's
yeah.
got to
So
say.
for those of you who maybe not even aware, I'm a channel. So for a spirit
And show
entity
them
called
Mr. T in the back because then they'll
yeah,
see you.
that's
Yeah,
in
over
there.
there. Yeah.
That's Tabash over there, wherever. And
And tell them who Tabash is so they
Tabash,
know.
okay, Tabash was a man who lived 5,000 BC. And he was simply a man of his day and time who integrated, he understood the bigger picture.
You
So he
just
became,
froze, Chook. You just froze.
okay, right. Am I unfrozen?
You're unfrozen.
Okay,
So
right.
just
Yeah,
say
okay, yeah.
who
So
Tabash is.
yeah, so Tabash lived in Sumeria and it was 5,000 years BC. He was a man, simple man of his time who understood mind, body, spirit. And therefore he became of the soul. So he mastered his understanding about the formulas. So he wasn't a big guru or teacher or healer or anything of that nature. He was a merchant. He had wife, he had kids. He lived in a compound with his extended family. But he lived as God, as he's taught me. And in doing so, he always had access to all the power of life.
Mm.
And so it just established true principles, as he called them, into his existence. And then he taught his family and people in that sense as well. So he wasn't doing big meetings and meditations and all that sort of stuff. He says you just take the thread of higher consciousness and you just bring it through your day-to-day life.
I love it.
And
So
and
simple.
the, and I mean I try my best to do that, to live as God. And someone actually said to me, "Well, what does that mean? What do you mean live as God? How do you do that?" Expecting me to say, like that, all that sort of stuff. And I just said, it's just it's conscious awareness of what we really are. I feel it. And all through the day, I'm always affirming it. And to the point where your energy just builds up and builds up and builds. So you just become it.
Mm.
And that's where it goes beyond explanation. What's that phrase? Truth needs no publicity.
And it's exciting. I find it
Of course
so
it is. Yeah, yeah,
exciting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So Tabash made an agreement with me when before I reincarnated, and obviously it's part of my development as a human being for that to occur, and it gave him a vehicle to give his opinions and perspectives on things. And I think that's really important to remember also that spirit is here to give a perspective. They're teaching us, ways. They're not saying here's the answer and this is what you need to do. They say, well, check this out, or look at this and have that, and then invariably we all decide what we're going to do with the information. And okay, sometimes information so resonates that it's like, yeah, but it resonates with you because you're on the same wavelength. And sometimes it doesn't resonate because if it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means, well, that wasn't for me.
Mm.
And so you check out other options and possibilities. And so I've noticed that, in lots of different channels and psychics and things like that, they really do stress. We are not the answer. We're activators. We're activating you into yourself, into to being yourself.
Mm.
And even people like Yeshua, Jesus, and other spiritual masters, they taught that as well, basically. But of course, human nature has, they create the need to follow as opposed to the need to walk side by side and be equal. And that's just, I suppose, because of human nature and emotions and people's inability to believe that they are that powerful and great, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, Tabash is saying, get on with it, stop talking. So
Give me a chance, he says.
yeah, he says, give him a chance. All right. Okay, listeners, doesn't take long to bring him through. I've been working all day, so I've been channeling all day. So I'm sort of,
Thanks, Tabash. Thanks,
yeah, yeah,
Mr. T.
yeah. So I'm sort of out of my body anyway. So, but yeah, and I'll talk to you on the other end. So I'll talk to you soon.
Super.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Jill. Nice to see you.
Yes, lovely. Haven't spoken to you for ages.
Ages. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'll just have some water. You know, when you have photographs done, maybe you're having a family photograph or a single photo, and you want to make sure the lighting is the best. So you want to look the best of yourself. So you light yourself. And that's what humans are doing, physically, emotionally, and mentally. You're putting yourself into a new light. And you want to make sure that you practice a little bit to make sure that it brings out all the best quality of yourself and your mind and your body and your spirit. And you know, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of shadowing. And you know, if you're full on in the light, then you know, you can't really see anything. And so you learn how to play with the light. Obviously, it's not about being in the darkness, but it's to understand, I suppose, a sense of mystery about yourself. You know, if you're always exposing yourself 100% all the time, then it's like, oh, well, there it is. Whereas if you allow yourself to gradually see how you want to present yourself to yourself, then you just got to play around. And I think human nature is doing that a lot at the moment. You're playing around with energy, you're playing around with the light. And when you're doing it from a position of harmony, then you know you get really great results. And then as your humans say, oh, I've never looked so good. And that's a good, I feel, a good way of looking at 2026 frequency. I want to look really good, mind, body, and spirit. It's not an ego thing. You know, I mean, it's always about presenting yourself in the ultimate way,
Hmm.
the ultimate light, the ultimate vibration. Esoteric civilizations that existed were always presented in the best light. And therefore, because of that, they had miraculous opportunities, mind and body and spirit, to truly achieve and to make extraordinary events occur and inventions happen, etc. Because everything was seen in the best light. And it never occurred to any of those vibrations that they couldn't. It was 100% accepted. Yeah, we're of the light, and that's how life works. And so if you were one of an artistic bent, then you would come up the most extraordinary artistry. If you're one who's science, you come up with the most amazing inventions and amazing structures. And it would never occur to you that you couldn't. And because humans weren't caught up in time, you just did it. And you know, you weren't clocking on and clocking off like people do.
Hmm.
You know, instead it was the ongoingness of life. And isn't that God power? The ongoingness of living, the ongoingness of life. But of course, human nature has established this stop, start, stop, start, stop, start energy by trying to fit themselves as unlimited source of power into this little small room sometimes. Oh, I've only got that amount of time to live, and I've got that amount of time to do this, etc., etc. You know, if you just instead say, I'm here to live, and I'm going to do that tomorrow in an even greater way. Yeah, I have my systems and structures, but I'll just bring the living energy into that. And when you bring the living energy into things, then it gives life to what your thoughts are, your feelings are, and even the most boring things possible. You know, a really good example of this is prayer.
Hmm.
And you know, people go to their temples and their churches and their events and stuff like that. And they're often reading out of books. You know, they got their prayer book and stuff like that, you see. And if you hear people en masse, they're going, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. And if you hear it en masse, it sounds like a drone. And prayers are incantations. They activate magic in the words. When they put together, it creates a formula. And so when you go into, a lot of these places that are worshiping places, it's just this droning and just like this buzzing noise that has no power, and the power of that prayer isn't activated. It's something to be, it's a routine. So people have often made belief systems routines, rituals routines, and not really bring the power into their prayers, into their recitations, etc. And so this is a time in human terms to activate the power in the way you're living, your words, your thoughts, your feelings. You don't all have to suddenly become all evangelistic about everything, but you have to realize that, well, my words are magic formulas, that if I use them in a magical way, then I'm going to activate the power of life through me, and I'm going to make a big difference. If you look at great orators who understand this, then people really hear what they say, and not just hear, but they feel it because it's activated within themselves, the souls. So there's a lot of reactivation that's occurring all around the planet within every human being, but also in places. And the early times of this planet, there were activation centers in lots of different shapes and forms. Obviously the most obvious is the pyramids, and but there were temples and structures worldwide that were activation energy points, and they were positioned in certain places. And the positioning was essential because it was linked in with every other building, artifact, or whatever. And it created this grid of energy that went through the earth itself and then up around the earth as well. So in esoteric times, there was this power around the planet, which was a light frequency. So again, we get back into the concept of frequencies, and this people were adding to and feeding from, and it was creating harmony and balance and life and equanimity and equality. And so it was, like I say, a one thought consciousness. And so humanity, of course, started to separate itself in its belief systems. And when it did, it started to bring in frequencies that were disruptive. And now, if you think about one's human nature, if you bring in a thought or a pattern or an idea that's counterproductive to you, it's going to disrupt
Mm.
your emotions, etc. And I was talking to a guy this morning, and he says, "Oh, Tabash, I feel so fatigued. Why am I so fatigued?" And I said, "Because in the environments that you presently find yourself in, you're basically deactivating, your own power because you're allowing yourself to get caught up into the collective, energy of your
Mm.
environment, you see." And of course, so much of that's been happening over these last few years, and people not believing that they have choices. And so that's actually a really good word for everything now. It's all about choice.
Mm.
What do you decide? What do you decide? Not where am I going? What should I be doing? That. What do I decide in how I wish to live my life? But you've got to bring in some form of soul belief that works for you. And that's what humans are exploring now. They're activating what makes sense to them. So some will listen to channels and psychics and mediums and those types of things. Others may just talk to nature. Others will listen to, religious dogmas and teachings, etc. So it's all individual, and there's nothing wrong about anything or right about anything, because it's just, well, what do you decide? What choice do I make? What feels that makes sense to me? And this is always very interesting when you get like a group of people, of household, for instance, with very diverse belief systems. And but if you look at that, the way countries are, they have such diverse belief systems that aren't in harmony. So of course it creates conflict because it's all about one-upmanship and whose belief system is better than the others, basically. See. And of course, it's that sort of belief system that keeps things separate and brings in fear and dissensions and uncertainty, and it makes people not feel safe in the way that they are. You know, they have this thing, they call it the doomsday clock. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah. And every so often, Happy Joy Joy person says the doomsday clock is like 3 minutes to 12 or something like that, And of course, that sort of attitude and announcement isn't particularly productive. But having a doomsday clock is a huge indication of where humanity's coming from in the first place, if they have to have it. I think that they should also have an alternative to the doomsday clock. So I don't know what you would call it, the living clock or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, the doomsday clock may be 3 minutes to midnight, but our living clock, oh, we don't even have a dial because we don't measure our living in that vibration. So, but that's,
Which
human
one
nature.
do you choose?
Exactly. And whatever you choose is what you choose. And look, there are some people who would choose the doomsday clock. And some people will go, why would you do that? But that's what they resonate to. And for whatever reasons, and that's not wrong. So not the alternative to the doomsday clock is not right. It's just an alternative.
Mm.
And so you've just got all these opposing vibrations all the time. And I mean, everybody's looked at all of them through their lifetimes. You got to experience everything to understand how everything works. Even the misery gut stuff, you got to experience that. But then you get to a point, which I believe now humanity has, where actually we don't have to do that in the same way now. We don't have to get caught up into the misery and all that sort of stuff. But then through other people's misery, there's been a huge political and social control of people. And so there are powers that be that it's not in their vested interest for everyone to be enlightened.
Mm.
But of course, people are wiser now because the lights are being turned on. Now the lights are being turned on. That's why all these things are being questioned. Excuse me, you can't tell us what to do. We're not going to be influenced by that anymore. And yet, when they challenge that, it does create a bit of insecurity because suddenly it's like, well, what now? We've always followed that dogma and that rule and all that sort of thing. And now people are realizing the self-responsibility for the way they're choosing to do the driving and not reliant on being told what to do, whether it's from politics or spiritual, whatever. It's like gather, 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 but then tell yourself, all right, what am I going to do with this?
Mm.
And so this is where you establish this new level of freedom. And this new level of freedom is an opportunity. Sorry, it's Blair's best friends dinging him, saying, "You want to do dinner?" Like this. Hang on a
Another
minute.
choice.
Now what I'm going to do, this is going to be really funny. I'll just get Blair's phone.
This is how it rolls with Blair, guys. And with me, go and get some water, and Tabash goes and gets Blair's phone. I just love it because that's living in the now.
I love doing stuff like this. Hello, Remy. It's Tabash here, actually, not Joseph. Yeah, I'm being interviewed on a podcast, and oh, that's all right. I don't mind. It's quite funny. The audience will love this. Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. Nice to hear from you today. Oh, thank you so much. Anyway, I'm sure Blair would love to have dinner with you at 6 p.m. Amazing. Okay, so yeah, we'll be finished here by then. And yeah, so he'll have a big surprise when you arrive. So would you like to say hello to Jill Cole?
Hi, how are you, Rem?
Good. So we're having a very interesting three-way call.
Yeah, this would be the first for me. I love it.
Well, look, it's all about communication, isn't it? And I mean, isn't it grand to think that people have this way of being able to communicate now, whereas in my day, it was completely different, you see. But in my day, it was also about vibration. So you could actually, there's a lot of telepathy going on in,
Mm.
in times past. And so whereas, you don't need telepathy these days, it's much easier to pick up your phone and call. Anyway, I'll leave you, Remy, to your time, and I'll bring Blair. Well, I won't bring Blair back at the moment, but I'll hang up the phone anyway. So,
Right. Well, thank you.
okay.
And all the best for the podcast.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Goodbye. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Oh, looks like Blair's got a nice evening ahead.
Well, exactly. And if I'd ignored that, then he wouldn't have. And well, he would have had a nice evening, but he would have been on his own. So that
Yes.
was cool. So, but yeah, I know some people might find that a bit odd, spirits doing stuff like that, But you see, it's not all about standing on a pedestal or on a stage and, projecting great truths and all that sort of stuff. It's living. And I know there are, teachers who do it in that way, but that's not my way. I can do it that way, as you know. But it's about bringing the normalcy, if you like,
Mm.
into your connection with Source, making it an everyday way, crack a joke, hang out. When I first started working through Blair in the 90s, and prior to that in the late 80s, when we were training his body up, I would say to his wife, oh, I want to be in the body for a bit. He needs to get used to working in the body with my vibration in his body. And so I would sometimes spend the whole day, with Kay. And she used to freak out because she's like, said to Blair, what am I going to do with him all day? And I just made suggestions, and I said, let's go to the supermarket. And we went to the zoo one day, and we went in the car, and just chatting away, and but it was just accustoming his physical body to working with those vibrations and energies. And I mean, I didn't do that on a regular basis because, of course, once I started channeling through him publicly, then didn't need to. But it was very hilarious because one day we're in the supermarket and I was just pointing out to Kay, now don't eat that, don't do this, don't look that, that sort of stuff, you see. And you can see people were staring at Blair like, who is this person? There's just something about. And what they ended up doing was following them. So we were in the supermarket and Kay was putting things into the basket and people started following us. And they had no idea why. They're pretending they were just putting biscuits into here and whatever like that. But by at some stage, and we look back, there must have been about 15 people. So,
The Pied Piper.
well, it's just frequency and energy. And saying that makes me think to say to listeners, be attracted to energy, be attracted to life in a way which is extraordinary. And by doing that, then have fun with it.
Mm.
So I'm just thinking about the Egypt thing that we're going to be doing. And it's such an activation place. And each place we visit, you're going to be activated. People are going to be aligned. People are going to be woken up. People are going to be walking towards themselves in the most extraordinary way. And of course, everyone will be guided and directed. And what I love about groups like this is that they'll support each other.
Mm.
They'll bring in a harmony, they'll bring a balance, they'll bring a family energy, a united frequency. So it's like a unification of consciousness. And of course, Egypt is been the center of so much over the centuries. And there's a reactivation that's occurring as more things are discovered, and with more discoveries, more vibration, more energy.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's this it's an extraordinary country. And for those who, feel drawn to it, if you can in your lifetime, do that and allow oneself to experience themselves as gods.
So, T, can I interrupt you and say, what was it that made you suggest to Blair
Mm.
that Blair and I take
Mm.
this group in
Yes,
September?
yes,
What,
yep, yep.
why did you
Mm.
want that pull, those people coming at this time?
Yeah. well, around that particular time, particularly, there's a surge of energy that's going to be going through,
Oh.
the country. But there's also a meeting of energy, celestial. So the meeting of the galactic energies and the meeting of the earthian vibrations, and it creates a new pattern, a new frequency. So anyone who's in that area is going to be more activated. And well, let's put it different. Anyone who's in that area who has a high level of awareness is going to be activated in that energy. Their lives will never be the same, and it's all going to be big events and stuff like that. But it's just this, I'm different. And and then when they return home, it all starts unfolding. So they become more conscious of themselves as unlimited sources of power. And then they start making new arrangements for themselves, in their lives in every way possible. And in
Mhm.
some cases, it will be quite major, but in others, it will just be quite quiet. I mean, anybody who's running stuff all over the world, these activation places. South America is the same thing. That's happening a lot. Australia, that's happening quite a lot. There's a lot of activation there that's going on. Um, Places in Canada, there's activation that's going on in there. And it's just to do with uh, what I was saying before, Blair was saying before about these energy places that get activated more. And so Mount Shasta, that's a good energy as well. So there's just a lot of awakening that's occurring. And this is one of the reasons why humans are seeing more certain volcanic activity that's occurring as well. Because and that doesn't mean suddenly everything's going to explode all over the place. But this shifting of energy, Hawaii is another very, very powerful activation place. So and people are being drawn to these places to run seminars and do meditations or have a holiday and whatever the case is. And so, but um, I think Egypt is like a new beginning for humanity because the energy that is embedded in the very grains of sand in such a place
Mm.
is goes beyond what humans can understand. And so the whole of that area to me is like a library, in every stand, in every piece of sand, in every temple. It's a library in stone, a library in the ground, it speaks. And so when people are ready to hear, when they go to these places, it speaks to them and they hear. And it activates the psychic energies, the clarity, their visionary abilities, the healing energies. It heals their bodies. It makes them more brave and conscious and courageous. And, suddenly they transform, which is, how exciting to be transformative. So,
Yeah,
haha.
I had the most incredible experiences there, and each
Yes.
time it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but also too, the group, whoever eventuates, they become a collective consciousness. So each is a component of a great formula. And
Ah,
that energy of the formula will support each individual for the rest of this lifetime
oh,
and
that's
beyond.
beautiful.
And so, it's it sort of as you discover with the recent group, together you're like that to begin with, and then gradually, but it's still there, and the energy just you're feeding each other all the time.
And
So
so supportive.
yeah, what it is, that you're supporting your nature, your higher nature.
Mm.
And therefore, as I have seen, it's also assisted people in human nature too, where people have supported people with, with some, recently there was one of your members who lost a parent,
Mm.
and so people stepped up, with love and energy and words, or just a state of being, basically, and I mean, that's how it all should be, humanity serving each other. So anyway, I better
We are
go because
we are
Blair.
so looking forward to you chatting every day. I
Oh,
love
well,
the
absolutely. Yeah.
now.
Look, I'll be on the bus chatting away. How you doing? Nice nails, All right, I'll bring Blair back.
Thanks.
I
Thanks,
love
Mr.
you.
D.
Well. Okay. We'll do this again sometime soon. Okay. This is
Wonderful.
okay. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Hmm. Hello.
Hi, you've got a dinner date
What do you mean?
tonight at 6 o'clock.
With who?
And it's in 3 minutes' time, so we're going to go.
3 minutes. Who do I have a dinner date with?
Remy,
Ah, that's hilarious.
Mr. T organized it.
I was just thinking, I hope he hasn't made a blind date for me or something.
Hey, so thank you. That was just lovely.
Oh, that's well, yeah, fine. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm a
And,
bit thrown with that. I'm just like, oh, that's
and
all
he
cool.
does, he loves being center of attention, oh, Mr. T, but it's wonderful because he's got such, he's fluid.
Yep, yep,
It's
yep.
just lovely. I love it.
Yeah,
Could
no,
listen
it's
to
it's
him
it's
all
a, it's
day.
it's a living vibration, so which is great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll go and
Enjoy
look
your
out for
dinner.
them. And hey, awesome to see you.
Yeah,
And
you do.
thanks for allowing this to happen. And I really love talking to all you wonderful people out there listening, watching, etc. So
Oh, so where do they get hold of you, Blair, if they want to see?
oh yeah, okay. So just go to my website, which is blairstyra.com. And there's my website. And if you want to make an appointment, then you can do all that online. And there's lots of stuff online too. I do monthly newsletters and there's content and stuff like that. So if people just want to have a bit of a squiz. Yeah. And I live in Wellington, New Zealand. So
But you
um,
just do it over Zoom so they can be anywhere in
no,
the
no, no,
world.
no. People can come here as well,
Oh, really? You do
Yeah.
personal one-on-ones?
Yeah. So, people who are more local, they want to come here, then I allow that, and
That's
but
nice.
it's up to each individual. So, all right. Well, blessings, love. Okay. Ciao, ciao
Cheers,
for now.
guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.